And welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast. I'm so glad all of you are joining us. We're live from Austin, Texas. I have with me in studio none other than Machine Gun Nick, back as a regular here on the podcast. Welcome back, Nick.
Oh, hello.
And then also a huge part of Wells Branch Community Church, which we're so proud of and honored by, is Michael McGinnis, counselor at Space of Grace Counseling. And Michael, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so what I brought Michael on for is, like, I wanted you guys to know as what we are as a church is committed to everyone's sort of mental, spiritual health. And so we've really partnered up alongside Michael, and we want everyone to take part of his ministry. And I really wanted you to explain what that means. Like, What is a biblical counselor, first off? And then we're going to go into, I really want to get into what it is exactly is you do around here. But, like, tell us about what biblical counseling is and why you got into it.
Okay, thank you. Well, basically, biblical counseling is a intersection between discipleship and mental health therapy.
Right.
And I believe that they both are intertwined because God says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And that mind part, he wants us to have a healthy mind, a healthy mindset so that we can practice number 2, love your neighbor as yourself. Because I believe many of our mental health challenges is really between ourself and others and ourself and God. And just reconnecting with God helps us reconnect with the others. And so there's a discipling / mental therapeutic aspect of biblical counseling.
So how did you get into this?
Well, actually, I got into biblical counseling through a challenge that I went through in my own life. I retired as a school teacher, but prior to that time, I went through a really painful divorce, and there was a lot of things that came up in my life that really needed some serious addressing from a spiritual, mental, relational standpoint, and I was able to get a lot of help. So through that, I began to do a lot of support groups, lead some support groups, and there was some, people mentioning, hey, have you ever thought about, being a counselor? And after hearing that a few times, it's a little bug in my ear, I decided, Lord, okay, show me a path that you would like for me to take, and God showed me the path of biblical counseling.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. And so I wanted you to walk us through, let's say someone makes an appointment with you, and they walk in. That's why I have Machine Gun Nick here as client Nick. Talk us through how you would walk through that opening session and really what you're looking for.
Yeah, sure. So I want to walk through this as if we'll pretend that Nick is a prospective client, and usually what I'll start out with is I'll ask the person how they found me, and then I'll go directly into, hey, I'm interested in learning more about your situation to make sure I'm able to help you. So I have some questions that will help me get to know the situation a little bit better and make sure we're a good fit for working together.
And there's no pretending. This is all real life.
Yeah,
Nick is a real client.
Yeah, this is a real situation. So, so Nick, tell me a little bit about why you're currently, seeking therapy. What's been the situation in your life that's got you currently seeking? You know what? I need to talk to somebody.
So I go on the first thing I'd point out is I'm just freshly out of the clone term toxic relationship, and then there's kids involved, and then I would definitely go back to 20 years as an infantryman and 9 of those as a paratrooper in the U.S. Army, several combat deployments. And then I definitely would have to talk about probably some childhood, I don't know if you call it trauma.
Call it small t trauma.
Yeah, okay. It's really hard to call that trauma, but childhood was fun. We'll put it that way. And sarcasm. And as much as that well that you keep shoving stuff down is, when you're in your 20s is deep. In your 40s, I found out it just comes out.
Right.
So the more you shove down there, it just eventually it's like, oh, why won't it just stay there?
Right.
Yeah.
And so So yeah, I would definitely, and then I think a reaction to that is, I have depression.
Mm-hmm.
I'm depressed because set this or that. I didn't zig, or I zigged when I should have zagged, or I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but it just it bottled up,
Yeah.
and that's why I'd be seeking counseling, or I am seeking counseling,
Okay.
or we go do counseling.
Okay. So it sounds like you're saying, in a nutshell, because of all the things that you've been through in your life, including some of the childhood challenges, being in war, relational challenges, the way that you want to, help your kids, all those things have kind of led to a weight, and that weight is being manifested in a form of depression. So that's what it kind of sounds like, that you're, dealing with the weight of just life, basically. Yeah. Okay. So have you ever been in therapy before? And if so, what was that experience like for you?
Yes. That's perhaps the reason why I got the second divorce. So this is good and bad.
So good and bad. Okay.
Yeah.
How's that? Why you got the second divorce? What happened?
Well, so I was sitting there with, and I don't remember the counselor's name. That's somewhere. It was Manhattan, Kansas, just outside of Fort Riley.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going kind of through me and Megan's dialogue. All right, everyday conversations. And his question to me was, "Who do you think calls me that in my house, Nick?" And I looked at him, and I got quiet for a second, and I was like, "Nobody." And he's like, "Yep." And I was like, So I was kind of like, I don't want to be here like, oh, I was a victim, but I was like, why do I put up with this crap?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, what do we do now? Like, I don't like this.
So wait, the counselor said that?
Yeah.
Who calls me whatever name your wife called you?
Yeah, he's like, who do you think talks to me like that?
And
I was like, nobody. So in other words, wives don't tell their husbands they're losers on a daily. They don't. This is me venting, I guess. They don't, say I want a divorce every single week. You hear that for 10 years, and eventually you're like, okay, that's cool. Let's do it.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of stuff to go through for many years. So let me ask you this, Nick. What would be your ideal outcome as a result of seeking therapy? In other words, if you were to do a few sessions and you thought, that was really helpful, how would you know?
This sounds so bad. I don't like to say this, but I'd be a functioning member of society again.
how are you not a functioning member of society now?
I don't even have a real job right now.
Yeah.
Like I want to do stuff. I really and honestly, I think this year I have a few goals set that I came up with this year. Again, I don't believe in resolutions, but I believe in setting goals. And one of them is, consistency. Whether that be showing up for my kids, whether that be just getting back into, I guess, the 9-to-5 scram, but just showing up.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that's more like it would be helpful if you were able to have more clarity on your purpose, the purpose by which you were put here?
Well, that's funny because we have all kinds of clarity on my purpose. I found that out last year. And that goes back to God already put a calling on my life. So it's just like,
maybe a refocusing on the purpose, it sounds like, because if there's other things that's going on
yeah,
that are taking you away from your focus, then it sounds like maybe that should be addressed.
or maybe just focusing, because I
Okay.
don't think I've focused in probably 5-6 years.
Okay, all right,
Because there's that whole year that you're retiring from the Army where you're just like, meh.
okay.
Or
So-
6 months for me, it's like, this is happening. We're getting out.
Okay, so think about that ideal outcome then. This focus, this refocusing on the purpose that God has for your life. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like very committed, and 1 being, what would be your commitment level to experiencing this ideal outcome?
I'm a man of extremes. So it's either I'm not in or I'm all in. So I'm all in.
Okay, so you would say a 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got this ideal outcome, which sounds like you're very clear on what that outcome would be as you're seeking counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And then it definitely sounds like you have the commitment level to match the outcome that you wish to seek. What's your why? Why do you want to experience this outcome? Why do you want to be that committed to experiencing this outcome?
Man, just for a better life. When it really comes down to it, there had to have been some kind of calling for me to be a soldier, and I did that. Wish I could have done better at it. Wish I had maybe made a little different personal decisions while I was one, and maybe I could have wrote it out a little longer. But for whatever reason, it had 20 years on it. Mm-hmm. Blessed that I had 20 years to give. But after that, getting out and trying to figure out who you are, because I can't run a gun anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying basically your why is that you want to have a better life. So why do you want to have a better life? What's driving that why?
Because those who can do. Does that make sense? If you can, you should. I could go to war, so I did. I can sit up here and talk about these things that happened in my life that weren't fun, so I will.
Okay.
And if I can bring somebody out of the darkness and into the light, even if it's just a couple people over the next 40 years, because I figure at 80 I'm dead, then that's better than not doing that.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question for you then. So if you can, because you said those who can do, if you can, what's stopping you from getting there on your own?
Me.
Why counseling?
Me. I am. Everything that, it's just, I don't even know how to explain it to you.
Unpack that. So what happens to you in between, like, the right thing to do, you've heard great stuff, and then going to put into action, what happens?
I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm like, maybe we'll do that tomorrow.
Right.
It's like constant procrastination, and then the whole time you're thinking, or you're sitting there thinking, I'm not good enough for this.
And I think that's one of the things that I would say comes out in questions during counseling is because we don't do the things that we should do. I think it points to we all need help. We all function better in community. And when I said earlier, biblical counseling is an interconnection of discipleship and mental health, and just having the mental clarity that we need to do the things that we need to do. We need help doing that. So one of the things that helps me to determine whether I'm a good fit for a prospective client is I ask myself, can I help this person move across the gap? That means from where they are now, when they first made the call, and where they want to be. And I definitely feel like, based on the things that you mentioned, knowing your desire to please God, it is something that I could help you move across the gap. And the other thing I wanted to share is that when your ideal outcome is crystal clear as far as what it is that you want as a result of seeking counseling, and you're committed to the process and the hard work that it takes to get to a point of healing and transformation, the why propels you to persevere when the process is tough. Because I see that a lot of people quit because their why is not solid enough for them to carry through on their commitment. And then they lose sight of the ideal outcome that they want to achieve. So that's why the why is really important. And then I would just challenge you, Nick, or anyone else that's listening to the podcast today, if your why is not greater than yourself and any kind of self-desire, and I don't mean selfish desire, because a lot of our self-desires are good desires and have been given to us by God. But if that why is not greater than yourself, when the going gets tough, you will fail.
You'll quit. You won't lean in.
Yeah.
Press on. I definitely can see that. Yeah.
All right, so here we are. So we've got this, like, this is the initial kind of counseling
Yes,
thing.
sir.
And then what's your next step with Machine Gun Nick?
So my next step would be, based on our dialogue and whether he also feels like I'm a good fit, which I will at this point ask, hey, what questions do you have for me? So what questions do you have for me, Nick?
How is that process going to go from, hey, like, there's some days I don't want to get out of bed right now, to, like how are we measuring that, and what do you think we can do to fix that?
I think that's a really good question, Nick. And basically, what I try to do with all of my prospective clients is to let them know that I would like for us to commit to 4 sessions. And in those first 4 sessions, we begin to really unpack just some of the challenges that maybe happen in childhood and your family of origin. And family origin is a really big deal. And then from there, we have maybe an assessment as far as, kind of some of the goals that you want to set for yourself. And then there's a check-in to see how things are going. And then we unpack the assessment in the 3rd session and talk about where you want to go from there. And in the 4th session, we begin to really hone in on some specific things that are holding you back. And then we really evaluate and determine, whether we want to go further. But I think that initial, again, it's that why that really drives people past, hey, I don't feel like getting out of bed. Hey, I don't want to today. Hey, I'm not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so let's talk through, because you guys have been through counseling for a while. So what's been what have you progressed? I'd love for you to talk, and you're open about sharing all this, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So talk.
It's already out.
Yeah,
everywhere.
talk to us about how Nick is doing here, and how you want to see him progress.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, even when he shows up and maybe he's not there all the way, he really fights to be open and be vulnerable, which that's something I appreciate, is that, and I tell people, the more you disclose, the better I'm able to help you.
Yeah.
Because you can disclose as little, as much as you want to, as much as you feel comfortable with, as much as you feel like you're able to trust that other person. And I would say, if you disclose very little over time, and you remain someone that discloses very little, then there's not much help going to really come to you in that way. And that's the way it is in real life.
Right.
Whoever sows sparingly, Bible says, will also reap sparingly.
Right.
And whoever sows generously will also reap generously. So I feel like the more someone shows up, the bigger a person shows up, the greater the healing, the transformation for them. And I don't say that just only from a professional perspective, but also personally, in the personal growth and benefit I had as a result of just really opening my life to those that helped me over the years.
Yeah. So how would you say Nick is doing? So he shows up, he's working through things. How often do you guys meet?
Every other week.
And how when you get in there, are you sharing what happened that week? Do you have a hey, we're now on week 5. That means we're going to talk about XYZ.
No, I don't do it that way, because I feel like every person is different. And I try to make sure that I follow up on what was talked about before. And I think it's important to have a plan. And at the same time, when things come up, sometimes you have to go off script because you want to be in the moment. And I try to stay in the moment with my client and make sure that I'm addressing things that they want to address, because again, it's the idea outcome that they want to achieve. It is what are they seeking as a result of coming to therapy? What is it that they're wanting to get out of that?
Yeah.
And if it's something that's going to benefit them in their walk with God, in their relationships with others, and their health and how they live their lives, then I want to make sure I address that. But then there is a plan within that.
Yeah. Okay. So, Machine Gun Nick, tell me about like what's the biggest or the most impactful? How many times have you been with Michael so far?
5 or 6.
And what's the most impactful thing that you've maybe taken away? It doesn't mean you've implemented, but you've taken away.
Probably the biggest thing was the boundaries with mother. No, with my mom. Because I think that was like that was a really deep conversation that we had. Eon, and it was recent because the transmission thing happened, and I asked her for help, and like her response was, you're a turd for asking for help, and I was like,
oh gosh,
okay. And I think we went over that, and we've circled on that one a few times, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
That really put to point kind of my childhood.
This is one of the things that we always knew in the military. The best snipers are the ones that had mommy issues.
Wow.
So you say I should have been a sniper, not a machine gunner?
Well, I mean, it's just those that have like they're really able to disconnect emotionally because they don't have the empathy, and so they're just able to go bam, all right, next, and they sort of move on. And is that part of? I'm just curious if that stereotype holds true.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why whenever I do talk about, I don't think I have a problem with taking out the enemy. Doesn't bother me. It's never been like, oh, that was bad. That wasn't nice. It was always like, ha ha, we got that way. But but then the cross section of that is, the PTSD problems that I do have is the guys that didn't come back.
Right.
And feeling guilty that I wasn't them.
Why?
I mean, some of them were better men. Not just better soldiers, but just better men.
Human beings.
Yeah. And it was always like, why take that guy? Why take Anthony Legman? Nick Drummond's a mess.
Right.
Just take me.
I think a lot of soldiers that have been to combat, Marines, sailors, all those guys who've lost buddies. We've all had that sense of like, where is God in that? And how did you deal with that? How did you answer that question? And maybe then and then now.
Well, then I was going to go back, over there at some point in time, so it was all right. It was fine.
Meaning by you going back, maybe dying there, that would sort of make it right?
Dying there or taking out another one of them or a few more of them. Like, I could, wrath, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. It was weird because I always told everybody I'm not going to die over there. I don't know if I believed that or if I was all right with dying.
Interesting.
There's a quote from Band of Brothers where I think that one guy tells the guy, you got to accept that you're already dead. And then you can do everything and anything that you need to do as a soldier. Right. And so then the empathy portion of it is like, oh, we shot a guy. It's like, cool.
Right.
Should I go dark on this?
You can go dark on this. I mean,
so I never did it, but I always wanted to put my finger inside a guy I shot while he was still alive.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of darkness that...
Like, it's just like, what's it like to be on
the
inside?
Just to be like, boop, and then wiggle it in there and be like, how's that feel?
Yeah, as I think about that story that you and Chris are kind of dialoguing through, I can't help but imagine how that wouldn't impact someone in their, maybe not day to day,
right,
week to week, but just subconsciously in different aspects or different things in their lives. I can't imagine how those wouldn't or couldn't be triggers that should be kind of looked into more deeply. So maybe that's something that at some point we can talk about and unpack a little bit more as well.
Well, I think it did in my kids. I think it resonated once I got out. So being in, it was always, I'm going to go back so I can deal with this, right? In a destructive manner, but it's okay. It's my job. We destroy things. Then when I got out, I didn't have that outlet anymore, so I started to self-destruct. And that's and I didn't end up, like, I'm not in AA meetings or anything like that. Like, you know, I was drinking heavily. And then one night it went from drinking to marijuana. But that was because, like, it was coming at me bad. And I just needed to, like, I don't know. So I got out of my mind, is what I told myself. I'm doing this to get out of my mind.
Right.
And I did it, and it seemed to have worked. But it's a cycle. It keeps coming back, or it can keep coming back. You know, like, 2 of my soldiers committed suicide from my fire team in Iraq, and a fire team is 4 people, so I had three guys under me, and I blamed myself. I blamed myself because I didn't keep up with them. You know, I stayed on in the military. They got out. Last thing I heard about Jennings was he was a wild backcountry firefighter. And I was like, oh, great, he got what he wanted. He's where he's at. I thought he was back with his, you know, wife. That's another story we probably don't need to talk about on air. But anyways, like, there was another person in the unit that was trying to get with his wife.
You know what, Chris? That makes me think about this statement. You guys have probably heard this before: hiding in plain sight.
Explain that.
And you know, sometimes things can be in our sight, and we don't know where it is. Like, where's my water bottle? And we're looking around, and someone says, "Dude, it's right there." So, oh man, I didn't even see it there. If it was a snake, it would have bit me.
Right.
And I think many times things are hiding in plain sight, which means it may be hidden from us, but it's plainly viewable to others.
Right.
And I think just some of the experiences that you're sharing, Nick. I mean, one, I think is important to be, you know, very empathetic, you know, to a lot of the experiences you've had in your life, which I believe that's one of the foundations of a good counselor, is really, really being empathetic and listening to someone's story and making sure that story is unique to that person, even if hundreds of people that have been in battle. Along with that, you're able to see some of these things that are in plain sight that may be hidden to the individual, and then you compassionately and redemptively bring those things to bear so that those things won't continue to be something that can be that proverbial, if it was a snake, it would have bit me kind of thing. Because sometimes those things do bite us because we don't see them, and other people could see them pretty clearly.
All right, I want to break from Machine Gun Nick for a second. Let's just talk through some of the issues, at least as a pastor, that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
You know, you got marriage issues. You've got trauma issues. Maybe it's war. Maybe it's some other thing. Sex issues, sex addiction. It's kind of like it's sort of like in vogue, I guess, right now. How are you? What's your breadth of counseling issues, I guess?
Okay. Well, I would say this. I believe that, you know, God is the one that kind of gives the increase, and I think He gives us the ability or within our capacity to address certain things. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can address every issue that everyone has ever gone through. I would say there is a section on my website under sexual addiction. It's something that's really close to me in working with men, because that's an area of life that, you know, God had given me great deliverance and victory over.
Oh, wow.
And I believe that, again, is something that I see quite frequently. And I believe that the greatest enemy a lot of times is, again, things that happen in people's past that continues to haunt them, and there's some kind of pain that they're not addressing. And again, I don't say that in some kind of like, it's not that at all. It's like there's some certain things in life are so daunting and so challenging for us. And when we are stuck emotionally in a childhood kind of wound, we kind of feel helpless like a child. So that would be one of the things that I would say that I really like to address
That's good.
men at least.
That's really good. We got to wrap this up, but man,
Yes.
I wanted to come back. We're going to do this again, and really excited for what the ministry that you have here at our church, and there's so many people that are going to you now. Talk to me. Usually, the big thing people always tell me is like, "But it costs too much." Talk to us about like what it actually costs, and why paying for counseling is the best thing somebody could do for their life.
Well, let me put it this way. I would say in matters of marriage, when someone says, well, counseling is costly, I would say, how costly is divorce?
Yeah.
Oh, it's very costly.
Yeah.
I got one
mean,
for you. You know, marriage is hard, divorce is hard. Pick your hard. But I'm going to tell you something. Your finances are a lot better off married. Coming from experience.
Yeah. I mean, I hesitate really to talk price because I would say that
Yeah.
people are willing to pay for the things that's most important to them.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Sure.
And even with time, with money, with resources, whatever. If the benefit of what someone's paying for outweighs the cost, they're going to
worth
make
it.
an investment.
Exactly.
Regardless of what it is, whether it's time, money, resources, they're going to make the investment. So it's like, you know, if you value what it is that, you know, a counselor is offering you, then really the cost wouldn't be an issue. And there's many things that we all pay for
Yeah.
because we value it. Like I pay for my workout sessions with my trainer,
Yeah.
and it's costly, but the benefit that I'm getting from it,
Exactly.
it offsets the cost in my mind. It's worth it.
And listen, if it's one of those things where if you're a person that goes to our church, or if you're a person that doesn't, you're in the vicinity of Austin, like we would love to help you. So like we believe in it so much, maybe we value it more than you do, and we might help you on the first couple to kind of help you take that next step, because I know just getting started in the process is super hard. So come see us here at Wells Branch Church, or go to spaceofgracecounseling.com and get yourself signed up for some counseling. We'd love to see more and more people. In fact, if you have questions, you can contact us at 737-231-0605. We'd love to hear from you on anything regarding faith, culture, and everything in between, and whatever mental health issue you are dealing with. We would love to help you conquer that. And Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And Machine Gun Nick, thanks for being so vulnerable.
Oh, well, no problem. Also, I'm dressed today like Phil Robertson because this weekend I'm going to be going out with Patriot Outdoors. And we're going to do a retreat. So I'm probably going to be dealing with some PTSD. Just in case you are a veteran listening and you need help, reach out to us. I'll try to get you patched in with some veteran groups and ministries that I know of. And just have a blessed day.
Yeah, hey, thanks for watching. Have an awesome week of worship.